To clarify, the page 16 of the GAO report says, between the 2009 contract and the 2010 contract, states should have conducted 4 cost containment studies and 6 risk assessments. However, for the 2009 contract, state confirmed it did not conduct either types of assessment. Because of the value of the 2009 contract, which was $209 million, 2 separate cost containment studies would have been required. Also, no risk assessments were performed and no risk mitigation plan was developed. So your answer is a little shy of the reality, at least according to the GAO, correct?
I would argue that the policy that the GAO is referring to and the sort of narrow interpretation of a separate risk assessment being conducted during or before award of a project, that is true. But risk assessment, when you look at it on its face, is going to the post, understanding what the risks are. How are you going to get materials in? Are there changing situations on the ground that are going to impact your project? Those are all things that are analyzed and that are known and that are included in the cost development for these projects. And that was done with the 2009 project. But understand that the budget for the 2009 project was developed in advance of knowing that there was going to be a significant increase in staff, that the border with Pakistan was going to be closed for 7 months, and any number of other issues that I've outlined in my testimony.
Mr. Kortz, is that what happened?
Well, I would again just point out that the risk assessment and cost containment study that they did in 2010 did point out some of the risks that eventually materialized. And by the way, one of those was difficulties with the land transport of materials. So some of these risks were known in advance. State predicted them in the 2010 study. If they had done the 2009 study, perhaps they would have had more time to try to develop some mitigation strategies.
And part of the
And perhaps we would have delayed award of a contract that is getting people into safe facilities as quickly as possible.
They're not safe. That's the point. They weren't safe, and now they're way over budget. We're missing by hundreds of millions of dollars. The overall project is coming in 3 years late. It was supposed to be done last year, and now it's not supposed to be done until 2017. So what's the case to be made that you've made this huge progress by bypassing all the bureaucracy? You put people in a better situation, because you got 2 independent people who've come in and looked at that and I think disagree with that analysis. And as regards to the security, on page 17 of the report, DS officials were not sufficiently involved in the cost containment study, and it goes on for a full paragraph. That's the frustration. Just reading this is why we're having a hearing, you would get the impression that they're not even talking to the diplomatic security. And we addressed that a little bit earlier, but that should be part of, before you do 2009, it should have been part of 2010, but that evidently wasn't done according to the report. Am I wrong?
I believe you are.
Well, this is why we have this hearing. DS cited, this is from the report, DS is cited in the policy as an interested office. According to the attendee list, no one from diplomatic security participated in the meetings related to the study. You have a pretty hard case to make that you were taking security at the top of your list and putting it in there when they weren't even invited into the meeting.
They were invited to the meeting. We can.
So they were no-shows, Mr. Starr? Were your staff not, they just said, forget it, I'm not showing up, not worth our time?
Congressman, I think our people decided that at that one particular meeting that there weren't equities, that we were necessary to be there. I want to emphasize something, though, sir, and I know that there are individual points that can be brought out and looked at by both IG and GAO, and in many cases, they bring very important things to our attention, and we correct those things. But I don't want to leave you with the impression that DS and OBO don't work together very closely to ensure that the physical security standards in our buildings are always.
She just said that your people don't show up at her meetings.
At one particular meeting on.
That's not what this says. That's not what this says. I didn't just come make this up. I didn't just come say, hey, let's pick on state. I'm reading a GAO report that pretty much concurs with what the Inspector General found. And the reality is, it's 27% over budget. You missed it by hundreds of millions of dollars. You got facilities that aren't secured. There's no master plan. There's no plan for temporary facilities. And it's the biggest expenditure we have in an embassy compound complex that we've ever had in the history of the United States of America. So you have a really hard case to tell me that we're doing things better and everything's good, just move on, nothing to worry about here. It's a $2 billion expenditure, and it's not yet finished.
Mr. Chairman, I would disagree with your characterization somewhat, but in certain
Which
things
one?
you're
Which
right.
part? Tell me.
This is certainly a very expensive project. It's very
What
large.
tell me what you
but
disagree with.
that we are not providing safe and secure facilities. It is true that they are behind the original schedule, but we are building safe and secure facilities. During the entire time that we were there in our temporary facilities, we have never lost a person on our compound, even with the temporary facilities, and we're building better ones today. Can our coordination be improved? Yes. The IG and the GAO pointed out that there were problems, and Lydia and I have worked to ensure that those problems don't continue. There is always room for improvement, and I, quite frankly, would wish that we could have brought these projects in faster, because moving the people out of temporary facilities faster gives them even better protection. We've been responsible for providing that protection during this entire time, and I think we've done a very good job. But none of us minimize the problems that have occurred in this environment as we tried to struggle to bring these buildings in. But I will tell you that, while we appreciate GAO and IG, and they do bring a lot of good things to our attention, not everything can be characterized as off base here. We are delivering, although you are correct, it is behind schedule and it is over the budget.